So I love that you were talking about tea too, because I think that one of the, I'll say, most socially accepted addictions and
Mhm.
or delights in our society, and delights for both of us, is coffee. We both love coffee drinking.
Mhm.
We love, every time we're together or our friends are together, we're always like, let's go
Right.
get a cup of coffee.
Yep.
And one of the things that you have done and taught me is to really make coffee into more of a ritual.
Mhm.
And I'd love it, before I get into this question, can you tell the story about the coffee in Paris? Because I think this is a really important thing leading
Mhm.
into this coffee question that we have here.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing, about 2 years ago is I was in Paris with my husband, and I actually wrote a post about it, and one of the learnings I had from there was to sit down and drink your coffee, to
Mhm.
make it a ritual, to make it an event. And you will never see people in Paris walking around with a big coffee cup or a to-go cup of any kind. They don't do that. You just don't see that, like a Starbucks cup or like any of these you're not going to see that in Paris, even though they have Starbucks. This is the interesting thing. Everyone sits down at Starbucks. They're not walking around
Mm.
with Starbucks to go. They're sitting down at the cafe and drinking out of a ceramic mug. And so that was something that me and my husband Kanwar instituted, when we came back from Paris. Actually, it was about a year and a half ago. Um, to this day, I have not taken a cup of coffee to go. I only will drink it sitting down at a table, even in a coffee shop, in a ceramic mug. That is just a non-negotiable for me. So it's making it into a ritual.
And I loved this story so much, and while I still, occasionally have it in my to-go mug, I have definitely turned it into more of a ritual and more of an intentionality, and also I've changed a lot about the ways that I think about timing with coffee, and
Hmm.
and you know that I'm such a big, I prescribe personally to a practice that I call conscious consumption, and so
Hmm.
whenever I'm putting anything in my body that is stimulating, or it could even be have a depressant quality, like having a glass of wine or something like that, I really want to do so from a place of consciousness, as to,
Hmm.
like, why is this the choice that I'm making? Is this the best thing for my body in this moment? And if the answer is like, yes, this is delightful, this is nourishing, and I'm doing it with thought, as opposed to what I think our culture does primarily around coffee is, I
Right.
gotta have it now. I gotta have
Right.
it first thing. We've all seen the memes, right? We've all got the coffee mugs or the t-shirts or whatever that, like, don't talk to me till I've had my coffee kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I've also heard that there is a big importance to delaying our coffee consumption by 90 minutes after
Mhm.
waking, which is the exact opposite of what I think most people do. I think they throw coffee in their face like before their eyes are even open. Why is this? And why is, making sure that the way that we consume coffee something that we should be talking about and changing? And is coffee really beneficial or harmful
Right.
according to Ayurveda? Because I
Mhm.
think that there's a lot of mixed messages here,
Sure.
and I know that I'm going to have a hard time giving up my coffee ritual, but I also am not having it first thing when I wake up anymore.
Yeah. So there's a couple of questions there. Let's start with, the 90-minute delay. This is actually a question I get asked a lot. And I actually wrote about it in my new book that's coming out at the end of the year, The Longevity Formula, because this
Yeah.
is, a practice that I think is really important. Um, let me just describe the mechanism of action really fast. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in your brain, and adenosine promotes sleep and relaxation. So when those receptors are blocked, you don't have the adenosine attaching. So you actually feel more awake and alert. Drinking coffee. So when you first wake up, your cortisol level is high and the adenosine receptors are still engaged. They still have some adenosine in them. If you drink coffee in the morning, right when you wake up, when there's that high cortisol and the receptors are still stuck with adenosine, they're still, connected to the adenosine. Well, you're not really going to have such a good effect of caffeine. You'll feel, energized, but you're really not getting sort of the bang for your buck here. Um, if you delay by 90 minutes, your cortisol levels start to normalize and your adenosine receptors become free. So then your caffeine can block the adenosine receptors. plus the decrease of the cortisol, you just feel more stimulated. You're going to feel that sort of that jolt of energy from the caffeine for longer. So
Mm,
essentially, doing this, delaying by 90 minutes just makes sure that you have the results and sort of the effect of caffeine for longer. That's kind of, you get the full benefit of the caffeine. That's really why to do it. And this also aligns, from an Ayurvedic perspective, aligns with the body's natural rhythms, right? And it really helps to balance the doshas. You have to remember, coffee affects each dosha differently. First, there's the qualities of coffee, which is hot and penetrating or sharp. Okay. So it's going to affect the pitta dosha because
mm,
much more in the sense of its like increases like pitta is fire, sharp and hot. So you put caffeine on top of that, it just increases that. So it's not always the best thing for pitta. For kapha, of course, it's opposite. So it really can help to counterbalance that, heaviness, sluggishness of earth and water. And
mm,
vata somewhere in the middle there, it just depends. But again, it could exacerbate a little bit of an imbalance. So that's something you need to take into consideration. So what I'm getting to is that there's no right or wrong of is coffee good or bad. There's no such thing in Ayurveda. It
mm,
really depends on your constitution, what time of day you're having it, and what stage of life you're having it, right? What season? All of those things are important. Some general things that I would say is the following. Make sure that whatever coffee you're having, it's clean coffee that's organic and doesn't have any toxins. Really, the idea here is clean coffee, is coffee that's grown without pesticides and chemicals. In addition, the coffee beans don't have mold or mycotoxins in there. Mycotoxins can cause everything from weakened immunity to poisoning, and also are toxic to the kidneys, the liver, and the nervous system. So you don't want mycotoxins, and mold is a big problem in coffee. So clean organic coffee is really important. My favorite is a brand called Fabula Organic Coffee. Hazelnut's my favorite flavor. You actually had this when you were over, I think.
I had it over. It's really good.
Mhm. Mhm. It's really good. So that's a really good coffee. I know there's other clean coffees out there, but that's just my favorite. So that's the first thing. The second thing is moderation. And again, just don't have coffee in the afternoon after 1 or 2 p.m. You
Mhm,
really don't want to go past 11, really, for most people. But be mindful and make it like what we were talking about with the Paris story. Make it a mindful, conscious consumption. Make it a
mhm,
ritual, make it enjoyment, really know why you're having it. And
mhm,
I think that it's just, then it's a nice thing for everybody then, or
mm.
for most people.
I really appreciate this because I've changed a lot of my coffee habits over the last couple years. At one point in time, was consuming so much caffeine that I started to have just headaches and also like kind of brittle bone kind of stuff. Like I was really having, this is a long time ago. I was in college. Nobody had told me what appropriate caffeine behavior was. And I was working as a lab technician at a cancer research institute because as a pre-med student, they're always telling you, get your research in right away
Right.
so that you have good hours to demonstrate your commitment to the sciences. But I was a lab technician who would often be doing, medical imaging, after school or before school.
Hmm.
And for many, many hours just sitting in this dark room. So I was like chugging caffeine like my life depended on it. And only then started to learn how negative the consequences can be. Now my relationship with coffee is quite different. I don't have it every day. When I do have it, about half the time I'm having a decaf too, because I
Hmm.
already know that as somebody who's vata pitta, like I am
Right.
already a little anxious. I'm already
Hmm.
a little up and flighty. And so some days I'm like, this is not the best
Hmm.
choice for me today. And then the other thing that I do to really ritualize it, I like to really add to my coffee. So my coffee is an oat milk latte. I know you and I both go to the counter and order that.
Hmm.
And then some things that I've added that I really like are I have like a kind of a mushroom kind of
A
it's from
reishi extract, reishi
yeah, the
mushroom.
reishi extract powder
Hmm.
that I add, and I froth that into my milk. I also occasionally add collagen to my milk as well If I
Mhm,
haven't had that in a smoothie, I'll put it in my coffee, and I like it because it gives the milk a better
mhm,
froth as well.
mhm.
But just even those little things of like taking the time to really make a thoughtful cup of coffee
Yep.
makes it a lot more enjoyable for me, and also
Mhm.
feels like it's a ritual and almost like I'm making this special potion for myself that
Right.
isn't just, like you said, the to-go cup from Starbucks that is full of sugar and things like that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I think it's just, it's really, I think one thing that you said, which is really important, is that you don't have it every day because you're also tapping into how you're feeling, right? So much of Ayurveda, it's all about conscious living. So if you wake up feeling anxious and, really high, like sort of all over the place, coffee may not be the best thing for you that day.
Mhm.
Right? So
Mhm.
tap into how you're feeling. I love that you said that because I think that's really important.